It's that dreaded phone call. Your tenant has called you up to let you know that they're giving you notice and you don't know what to do, all right? Some people are very afraid of having any kind of a vacancy in their multiplex. I'm gonna tell you many times it's actually better to have those units turn over, and actually having a 0% vacancy rate is possible in your portfolio. And today, I'm actually here to give you the full playbook on what to do from that initial phone call or email all the way right to the very end when you give that key. Because as soon as you give that key to the tenant, it creates a contract and a bond that is hard to break, all right, gang? So stay tuned right to the very end so I can actually show you exactly everything that we do here for the past 20 years to rent hundreds and hundreds of units and have a 0% vacancy rate so that you can too, all right, gang? But it's starting to rain in here. Let's head inside the building. I actually manage this for another investor. So before you get soaking wet, come on in and I'll show you the full playbook. Now, vacancies are real and they're gonna be your biggest line item expense next to repairs and maintenance on your properties. So if you wanna avoid vacancies, it's really important that you get started right away as soon as the tenant gives you notice, okay? So here is my playbook for when things start to happen right there. Hopefully they've given you proper notice. Let's say it's the 10th of the month and you're due 60 days notice, which is what is the case here in Ontario. You could technically go kick that notice down the road until the next month, but many times we will actually work with the tenants and say, look, it's not a full 60 days notice and we can't guarantee that we're gonna rent it on time, but we're gonna work with you on that and try to re-rent it as quickly as possible. So as soon as somebody gives us their notice, we actually trigger an email to them. It's actually called given notice, what happens next? And in that email, it gives all the steps of what we expect from them and what they can expect from us. And the first thing is that we have to go do our pre-inspection. So let me tell you a little bit more about what the pre-inspection entails. So the pre-inspection, this is where we actually physically get into the unit with the tenant and we are gonna be looking for the current condition of the unit and we're gonna be referencing what it looked like against what the unit used to look like, all right? So in this case, the unit looks pretty good. There are a whole bunch of holes in the walls here from hanging different fixtures over the years. Now this tenant was only here for a year, so really the unit should not have changed all that much, okay? But in your pre-inspection, you're looking for any damage, cleanliness, clutter, and all those different things, so you know how to guide the tenant on your next step, which is gonna be your showing process. And if you need to make a decision, can I actually show and rent this unit as is, or might have to wait until this tenant moves out? Like let's say if you're dealing with a hoarder tenant, you're probably gonna have to wait until that tenant moves out so that you can actually show that unit in its best light possible, okay? You can maybe give it a try if you have amazing pictures of that unit, but when it was empty. But for the most case, if you're dealing with a unit that is super overloaded, you can barely get through it, or it needs a lot of work, you might wanna wait until the tenant gets out. But if you're dealing with an average tenant like we were here, then you can say, look, we're gonna need to start doing the showing process. There isn't very much handyman repair work here, but if there is, we always let the tenants know that, you know, that's above and beyond wear and tear. We're gonna have to hire our handyman to come in here and fix some of the repairs and some of the things that, like the damage that's obvious here right now. We don't try to make profit on that. We just charge them whatever our handyman charges us, which is usually $30 to $50 an hour. It's typically little things like light switches or patching holes and doing paint and that sort of thing. Next up is gonna be the showings. Now you wanna make sure that you're marketing the unit the best possible that you can, so make sure you have great pictures up there on the internet and you're actually typically paying to promote that ad too. It really helps if you're on as many platforms as possible and you're actually paying to promote it up at the top, okay? These days we need to have every advantage possible so we can avoid vacancies, because there just isn't as many people here in 2024 that are moving and changing apartments, because the cost to do that, usually they're going into a higher rental type of a situation. So we're basically looking for new people that are moving to town and they're gonna be used to paying that current rental rate. Now on showing day, you want to actually encourage the tenant to be off-site so that you have full control over what happens in the unit for the showing. Always show up early so you can actually get the windows, you know, wide open of light, turn on all the lights and clean up any clutter that might need to be tidied up, all right? If there's excess garbage or things that need to be bagged up and tidied up, those are all things you can do if you get here early, because some of your best tenants are actually gonna come early too. So get on site about 30 minutes early so you have a chance to deal with anything that you might show up to be seeing that day, all right? So showings should only be done with the best candidates, and I don't typically do open houses. I do 15-minute showing slots because I think it's actually good to spend some time one-on-one with people that show up for the showings, and then they can typically see the next person coming because we've always confirmed our appointments and they actually see the competition of what's happening. Now from your showing day, you should be able to pick your next tenants, and from there that's a whole other vetting process that I won't get into today. But let's talk a little bit about what happens once the tenant moves out. How can you make sure that the unit is in as good a shape as possible for you, all right? So one of the first things that we do once the tenants move out is we ask them for their forwarding mailing information. That's actually something we start asking for about 30 days in advance when we do that pre-inspection. It's important because you want to be able to track the tenant down in case you find any other damage that you find afterwards after they move out in the next couple of weeks, or they might actually be missing an important piece of mail or information. We've had people miss tax rebates, HST checks, all kinds of different things, renewals, warranty claims, because we didn't have a forwarding mailing address for them. So that's just standard in our process now. It's something that we do with all of our tenants. So make sure that you get forwarding mailing information. Now the next thing we do is we need to make sure that we deal with the unit in the current state, and we're actually doing a walkout inspection with the tenant. So what are we looking for in that case? We're gonna be checking that all the electrical is working, and we wanna make sure that all the taps and all the drains are working here. Like in the bathroom, I'd be looking for, is this actually draining, or is the sink clogged full of hair, or the drain in the tub full of hair, right? So these are things that need to be working. If not, this should have actually been caught at your pre-inspection, but if not, let's catch it on the move out so that we can actually have a conversation about maybe that needs to be snaked, and there might be a little handyman bill for that. Then it comes down to any other things. My biggest pet peeve is actually when they put up curtains and curtain rods and then they take them down, just like these holes we talked about earlier. The one thing that we do is we actually offer to buy the curtain rods off of the tenant, so we can actually just go reinstall them in those holes, so we don't have to patch and paint and then patch and paint and then patch and paint, and the corners of the window just get blasted over the years in the same spot by all the people. So let's just go buy these off them for $20, keep them up there, because that's cheaper than my cost to patch and paint that part of the apartment. Now, before the next tenant moves in, it's really important to have that unit clean, okay? You can't expect the new tenant to go clean the unit, and you can't expect the last tenant to always leave the unit super clean. In Ontario, they only have to leave the unit broom swept clean, which doesn't really mean a whole lot in Ontario. The tenant here actually left it pretty decent, but we still need to bring a cleaner in for a couple hours. It is super important to have an awesome cleaner. I got Mary Beth in my corner here, so high five, Mary Beth. She is always in my corner when it comes to cleaning up these units, and specifically things like countertops, making things sparkle, and the appliances. If you don't have clean appliances, you can't expect the tenant to leave them clean for you. So ovens and fridges are very important on the cleaning list, and lots of times we actually leave the tenant a container of oven cleaner and say, look, please use this before you move out, so that actually saves my cleaner the time and effort to be cleaning that, spraying it and coordinating that. It's usually something she does at the beginning of her cleaning shift, and then she can actually wipe it out at the end. But if she doesn't have to do it, it's just a bonus. So again, gang, what you permit is what you promote. So if you give a clean unit over to a tenant, there's a much higher chance that you're going to receive a clean unit back. But either way, that new tenant that's moving in is going to be expecting a clean unit. So don't split hairs over, $100 worth of cleaning. It is an investment into your property. It is super important. Let me give you the last bonus tip here before we wrap up. Now, the last thing that we ask tenants before they move out is there actually anything in the unit that you were thinking about throwing out or leaving behind for the next tenant? And in this case, they actually left behind an air conditioner. This was actually at the curb. I carried this back in because they said, well, it's working, I just don't need it in my new place. I'm like, wouldn't it be awesome if the next tenant could actually use this air conditioner if it works? I mean, we're not going to guarantee it works, but let's let them decide that. And even from a couple tenants ago, this unit only has one closet, so they've left this rolling rack. It just becomes part of the unit here. So again, gang, my biggest bonus tip for you is that you need to have systems and great people on your team if you want to have zero turnover. If you actually want a copy of that email that we send out right when the tenant gives us notice, please send me an email. I'll leave the message in the comments down below here in the description, so you can get that extra little nugget there. So there you have it, gang. Everything that you need to do when you get that first notice from a tenant, right to giving that key in a nice, short, concise video. So my present to you for watching right to the very end. If you actually want that email that we send out to the tenants, again, go check it out in the description of this YouTube video. We actually shot a masterclass of how to manage your properties. It was 2 full days of content. If you'd like access to that content, you can go check it out in the comments as well. And I was just really inspired to shoot this video after our last video, which you can check out right here. Man, you should have seen the mess that this tenant left me. It was the worst mess I've gotten in the last 20 years as a landlord. And I had to show everybody that that's not normal, but if you want to see an exception, go check out that video, all right? Until next time, gang, keep your eyes locked on the channel. If you liked what we talked about today, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, drop a comment. We'll see you on the next one.